Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Join you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, as always, everybody, for tuning in. It means the absolute world. If you could drop a like, subscribe, all that lovely stuff. I suppose I should say a big thank you to everybody that's continued to help us over on the Arsenal Way. We hit 100,000 subscribers over there yesterday, which is an unbelievable achievement, really, considering we started the channel just over 2 years ago. So that was fantastic to see. And so thank you to everyone that kicked things off. You remember 2 years ago, I was like, let's try and get the first 1,000 subs. I think you probably remember that. Some of you are in those first 1,000 subs of the Arsenal Way, I know, and or have your own numbers, which I hope that you remember as well. And yeah, to see us get to 100k, unbelievable over there. So thank you to everyone that's helped support us on the Arsenal Way. It means a lot, and of course we'll continue to provide you with content over there as well. But good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Thank you for doing so. Glenn, good morning to you. To Alpha, to Vala, to Sabre, good morning to Lars. Good morning to Vala and Nyamdi and Maximius and Rob. We've got Amira and Darren and Stevie, Olawale, Colton, Jimbo, Viraj, Tom, Sweating, Merlo, Martin, Stephen, Rowan, Pika Who, Black Shine Trader, Joe, Old Dave, and plenty more of you guys as well. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It means a lot. Thank you that you would do that, and that also you'd drop a like as well, that you'd continue to support us, because that's just a nice thing to do, isn't it? Right. Shall we crack on with today's stories? Well, first of all, thank you for those that listened into yesterday morning show. I was unable to do the show as usual at 8 a.m. because, of course, we were live at London Colney for the press conference, and we're actually going to listen to a little bit of what I spoke to the Arsenal manager about. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Let me know in the chat box if you're not, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear the following exchange.
Hi.
In the midfield, obviously, you've got a lot of experience for rotation. Jorginho, Elneny, Partey, I know he's out, but there's some experience in that midfield. Is having players of that age bracket important in squad building?
It is. I think age is something, but after the experiences that those boys had and the human qualities of those are exceptional. So you just mentioned Mo. The way he lived those 6-7 minutes that he was on the pitch, after 10 months out, the way everybody looks at him is just fundamental for me. I always say that is one of the most important players because what he brings to the team, even when he's not playing every week.
And all those players I mentioned, they are reaching towards the end of their contract lengths as well. And when it comes to planning for the future, is it important then to replace that experience again with experience, or can you think it can be grown from within as well?
Or maintain. Yes, for sure, and that would be part of the plan. I think it's something critical for our squad, and as well the way the squad is designed and the profiles that we have, that they have always players there that can be role models of the field, but very important as well that those players can as well be respected for what they do on the pitch, and we have a few of them that are really good.
One player in that area that's doing really well away from the club is Charlie Patino at the moment. There's a lot of talk in the summer about he might look to move away to get more time permanently. Is there a pathway still for him at Arsenal to get back?
There's always pathway, and when we make decision on those kind of players, is always to keep an eye on them and see can we evolve the squad in a way. And the first thing that we do is look what we have internally.
So that was my exchange with Mikel Arteta at yesterday's press conference, asking him about kind of where we're at with the midfield. There was a lot of key themes that had already been touched upon in the presser, like talking about injuries and, Jesus, and we're going to talk about that, of course, as well. But I was keen to kind of get his thoughts on a number of things regarding specifically the midfield, because there is players like Jorginho, like Partey, like Elneny, who's, their contracts are coming towards a close. So is it important that you replace those players when they eventually do move on with players of similar experience or in the similar kind of age bracket? So I think that was always important. I was curious to get his thoughts. And obviously, I know that a lot of us has discussed. I was talking to Clive about it yesterday, and it actually inspired a bit of a question. We talked yesterday with Clive about Charlie Patino, and it's not really been talked about, to be honest. Charlie Patino's really impressive time with Swansea so far. So to hear Arteta saying that the pathway for him is still open, and that certainly, that there is, they look to within, they look internally if there's solutions to what they want from within the club, they look to that. So it's whether or not Patino, of course, would be happy with some potential minutes. I guess because he's spoken in the media about Saliba and seeing the loan that he went on and what he's gone on to do, as well as inspiration. So that's really positive as well. But Arteta talked about a number of different topics in the press conference as well. Of course, injuries was a big part of any press conference, and kind of hearing from the manager on the likes of Thomas Partey, in which, of course, he confirmed that he would still be out for a few weeks. He says, I think he will be out for weeks. I don't know how long, but he's got another appointment today, and we will see more after that. Now, there was news that kind of perforated through the social media and the media yesterday evening, suggesting that there is an aim and a hope that he might be back for the game against Luton at the start of December, which would be about 5 weeks, including the week that he's already missed being out. Really frustrating length of time, of course, for Partey to be missing again. Hopefully he returns soon, but you never, ever know when that's actually going to be. He was asked by James Ollie if he thought there was a wider concern about the injury record that he's got. And he says it is a big concern because when Thomas is fit and available, he's been part of the team. We've seen the results and the impact that he had. And this season we have more protection, especially for the reason because we know in the last 2 seasons what has happened and the result it's had on the team. We had to address that, and now it has happened. It can happen in football, and I'm so sorry for him because I think he is doing every single thing he can do right to be there. He was gutted, and we are for him, but he needs to lift himself up again with our support and go again because he's a player that is critical for us. So there you go. Really frustrating news about that. Ant says, Tom, why didn't you ask Arteta if you could win the dog? It's the wait still goes on, guys. But as I say, I'm at the next couple of presses, so fingers crossed. I'm actually going to have a word with someone and be like, look, just do me a favor and bring her along to one of them, please. I beg. Anyway, Odegaard, he also spoke about the fact that obviously he's been playing with some pain recently in the squads, and specifically, of course, he missed that game against Sheffield United. He was on the bench for the game, but obviously he didn't come on. I think he only would have come on in a really specific scenario if we really needed somebody off the bench to get us a goal. We didn't need that, so we didn't come on. He says we rested him the other day, so it's how long we rest him for and how we manage him now with the minutes and the rhythm that he needs, as well as to be at his best. So yeah, we had an opportunity to do it, and we didn't use him at the end. That was a good upload for him. And he was asked about whether or not his rest is the only way to treat his injury by Markman Bryans. And he says it's not only that, but there's also a lot of things that you have to do. It's impossible to play with no niggles in football. And at his level, when you have games every 3 days, it's impossible. If you try to do that, you better stay in bed, because I don't know any players who are consistently perfect and to be in the best possible conditions. So you have to adapt. So that's what he said regarding Odegaard. And then lastly, of course, updates on Jesus and the latest regarding his potential fitness as well. He was asked whether there's a time frame by Sky Sports, and he said, with him, I'm honestly not going to put any time frame because he did it once and got it totally wrong. We need to be cautious because he will need to be treated in the right way. He's already pushing everybody and wants to be back as quickly as possible, and we need him. So that's great. So it's kind of like he doesn't want to put like a few week timeline against Jesus. And that's obviously positive because, we want to see Jesus back as feasibly possible. And we know that he's got that ability, that kind of healing factor, Wolverine-esque, if you like, to try and recover from these injuries quicker than we might see other people return from injuries. But yeah, let's keep those fingers crossed that Jesus can return faster than perhaps we might think. Now, yes, it has happened. The Mirror reporting yesterday that Arsenal reportedly lining up a move for RB Leipzig's Benjamin Sesko. You know that I have raved about Sesko for a little while now, and of course he comes from the Red Bull Salzburg pathway. But finally, we see a credible source here in the UK talking specifically about Arsenal potentially moving for the striker. He's an excellent player. He's got lots of potential. He's still raw in some senses and still certainly has lots to do to improve. He's only in his very early 20s. And so plenty more development still to be had by him. But for me, as I've mentioned before, I think that the right pathway is to go for a young striker with a high ceiling rather than go for a 27, 28 Watkins or Tony. I think the right pathway for Arsenal is to find a striker that's got an incredibly high ceiling and look to develop them alongside Jesus and allow them minutes to gradually improve. You know, you look at Højlund at Man United, the emphasis on him is to come in and be the starter straight away. I think from an Arsenal perspective, if we can bring in a striker, because there aren't too many like elite level strikers out there for Arsenal to go and get. I don't see us getting Osimhen. You know, I don't see us going out and getting that caliber of striker. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so I think it's more likely that Arsenal should go for a striker that can offer you something now and move into a zone of real elite potential in the future. This won't be for January. I imagine it'll be more so for the summer if indeed Arsenal do change their mind on the player. I'd be very surprised if indeed it happens. I don't think a striker will be on the agenda for January. I think it's much more likely we see a wide player or maybe a central midfielder come through the doors in January. But also you've got to make sure that you reshape the squad because we have a 25-man squad. And of course, that means that we're going to have to move players on before we can move players in. Otherwise, we're going to be leaving players out and not registering them, which the club will not want to do, considering you have to pay their wages, etc. So maybe some loans, maybe some early termination of deals, like in the case of Cedric, is what will happen. Now, of course, we do play West Ham United this evening. So just a quick look at the team that I'd like to see out there. I would make significant rotations for this game. I think that Arteta won't make as many rotations as this, but I think that we have the ability to make this many rotations. So my team is Ramsdale in goal, of course. Ben White at right back, Kivior at right-sided centre-back like he did away at Newcastle last season, had that fantastic game. Gabriel alongside him, he was rested at the weekend, so he should be fully fit to come in. Zinchenko comes in because I'd quite like to see Tomiyasu start against Newcastle on Saturday. El Neni and Jorginho at the base of the midfield, providing that passing foundation with Smith Rowe playing at the 10. Saka gets a rest. Of course, he's still come back from that injury, so I'd quite like to see Saka get a rest in this game. You could use Nelson if you want. I've gone with Vieira because I like having the left footer on that right-hand side. I know it's not his best position, but I think that Arteta likes to have a left footer on the right, and Vieira is obviously the obvious pick when you want that style continued. You could put Havertz, but I've got Havertz playing at centre forward to rest Eddie ahead of the weekend, and then Trossard on the left-hand side. You could play Nelson again. Nelson could be in any of those front three positions, the wide positions, maybe even at 10. It's not something that I'm too averse to, is seeing Nelson play more internally. But yeah, I'd make significant rotations. It's not about not taking this game seriously. It's nothing to do with that. I think Arsenal, when we talked about this, actually, when I did Dan's podcast last night on the 12th Man podcast, I said, we've spent all this money. We talk about how much money as Arteta has spent as a manager. We can't then say, well, why would you rotate? Well, the idea is that you've spent loads of money, so you should have the squad to be able to rotate and make changes for these types of games, and then not say that, well, you're not taking the competition seriously. Trust me, you're taking the competition seriously if you're spending hundreds of millions of pounds strengthening the depth of your squad, if you can then make changes to be still competitive when you make those changes. So that's why we've spent the amount of money that we have. So you can't complain 1 minute about Arteta spending loads of money and then the next minute say, well, you got to go full strength against West Ham because you can't not take this competition seriously. That's not how it works. That's a contradiction. And so therefore you need to be able to make changes and still have a very competitive side to use against the opposition. So that's my team. But if you're watching on catch up, let me know your thoughts on what you'd go with for tonight's game in the comment section down below. But we're going to jump into the chat box now and go through your questions right after this. Okay, let's jump, shall we, into the chat and see what we can get regarding some questions from you guys. Matty says, Cedric at right back, not for me. That's too weak. That's too weak. And Ben White is a soldier. You know, Ben White is very good at maintaining a top level performance, even though perhaps that, you know, he's played a lot of minutes already. He's not a player that I have too much of an issue loading more minutes into. You can take him off in the second half if you want to. I've got no issue with playing Benny Blanco at all. Processes, do we think that Sesko has a higher ceiling than Balogun and Nketiah? Well, Balogun, we don't even need to worry about. He's gone. But Nketiah, it's difficult to know. You know, it's difficult to know at this stage. I think that there is certainly potential for him to be a better, more rounded striker that offers you a greater variety than what Nketiah does. But it's not guaranteed at this stage. And that's why I said we have to wait until the summer before we make any, you know, real final decisions on a centre forward that we should be looking to bring in. Arsenal for License, do you think we'll see any academy players on the bench for tonight's game? Maybe, because obviously we've got some injuries. Maybe there'll be some young players there, maybe one. But I still, we've got most of our senior squad still fit. It's only 3 players that are missing, so you've still got 22 senior players that are available to choose from. So I'd be surprised maybe a bit if there was a youth player on the bench. Byron says, Tom, what do you think about playing Kivior at 6? He's good on the ball and has a great passing range with a decent technical ability. I think that he's played defensive midfield, hasn't he, in the past for Spezia. He's played a number of positions. He's a versatile player, and that's why we signed him. But I don't think that we need to, because we've got a lot of depth in that 6th position. So I'm not sure that we need to play him in that role and just risk, a first-time appearance for Arsenal in that position yet. But I could be wrong. But I don't think we necessarily need to do that, because we've got plenty of options already. Fuad says, Tom, for you, do you see Partey's transfer as a success or not? Yeah, I do, because he's been part of Arsenal's progression from a team that was, regressing under Unai Emery initially, and then obviously fell out of things, and Arteta had to arrest that slide, and gradually Partey became part of that group that challenged for a title last season and showed and raised people's expectations as well. So yes, it has been, and it's been an important part of that journey back to competing at the very top of things once again. Jay says, what are your thoughts on getting Isak and Olmo? Isak, you're not going to get out of Newcastle. Olmo is a very good attacking midfielder. I'm just not sure where he plays for us, because we've got so many attacking midfield options at the moment anyway. If you're going to sign an attacking player, for me, it would be more of an inverted right winger to give you more competition for Bukayo Saka. Sam says, are you going tonight to the game, Tom? I am indeed. And Sam says that he's sat with the West Ham fans. Well, good luck with that, mate. I am indeed going to be at the game. I'll be working to bring the live blog. Of course, if you're not able to attend, you're not able to watch, make sure you tune into our live blog that I'll be running over on football.london. Lucas says, Tom, why are there no mics for the reporters at the press conference? I don't know. I don't know if it's a technical thing. It's just not a thing. It doesn't happen. So maybe it's something that they could do. Maybe I'll drop a little suggestion in. Maybe that's something. But it would be it's like that in every press conference, really. So I just don't think it's that feasible. They could point like a wide-ranging mic towards I won't say the audience, just the seats. But they just don't have microphones for the reporters. So yeah, I'm sorry that it's quiet when you hear us talking compared to what it is for Arteta. Yasin says, do you know when the FA Cup draw is scheduled? I think it's like December or late November. I think it's in that period. So we should hopefully find out our opponents in the next couple of months or so. Mr. Rees says, how strong do you think Newcastle will go against Man United, considering they play us this weekend? I still think they'll go strong, because I think that they'll look at the fact that Carabao Cup is an opportunity. I think they'll think that Man United are beatable as well. So, yeah, I think that there is, and they'll want revenge, of course, for that final defeat last season. So I think they'll go relatively strong and try to beat Man United. I think they certainly will. So, yeah. Ali says, why is Osimhen often ruled out as a possibility? Entering the final year of his contract, our squad is strong. We need quality, not quantity. We already agree. We already are being linked with Tony and Neto, who would cost more. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't cost more. Osimhen is going to cost you upwards of 100 million. There's also suggestions that contract talks are currently underway as well, and that Napoli might even agree a new deal with him. So there's a number of reasons why Osimhen is often kind of looked at as a bit of a unicorn, if you like, because it's not reachable. So I think that the idea that he'd cost less than Tony and Neto, no, I don't think he would. I think he would cost a lot more than Neto and Tony. I think that's what I just said. Yeah, Tony and Neto would cost less than what Osimhen would cost. I know you're talking about the length of his contract, but there is suggestions that that he would sign a brand new contract as well. So that's currently what's circulating around Italian media right now. Phil says, is Walters a right-sided centre-back or a right-back? He can play both. He's played a lot at right-sided centre-back for the youth team, because we've had other players that have been used at that right-back slot, Charlie Sweet, for instance. But he can play both. I think he can play that right-back role in the hybrid position that Arteta quite likes, but at the moment, our right-back role for Ben White is to overlap and get forwards and support Saka. So it's not as hybrid as it used to be. I think it's becoming a lot more traditional, that right-back role in the current Arsenal senior side. Tom says, in France press conferences, they pass the mic around the journalists so you can hear the question. It shouldn't be that hard for clubs to get hold of one. I genuinely, I don't know. I don't know why there's not a microphone or why they've not done that yet. Mate, as I say, maybe I'll have a word and ask why that doesn't happen, because I know that you guys would like to be able to hear maybe more clearly what the questions are being said. Mel says, Tom, whatever happened to Miguel Aziz? He's back at the club. He's playing with the under-21s at the moment. He was on the bench for their last game, their 6-3 win they had. Mario Dubry scoring a fantastic goal in that game. But he was on the bench for that. He's just sadly not been able to fulfill his potential. And he's been on loans. He's not been able to fulfill those potentials. He's been at Ibiza. He's been to Wigan, two very different places. Yeah, he's just sadly not been able to fulfill that. And that, I think that is a good case study of, fans get very attached, maybe not attached, but they hype up young players quite quickly. And actually, in reality, the chances of young players making it through to the elite level is so slim. Like, it's really slim. Like, we look at teams have youth academies because you want to be able to produce talent. And if there weren't youth academies, we wouldn't have players. They need to exist. But the success rate of an academy group making it through to a senior Arsenal position is exceptionally low. And that's why you often see loans to lower league clubs, to teams abroad as well, at lower levels in smaller leagues as well. And it's very rare that you are able to really see young players make it at the elite level. Arsenal have been very fortunate to have a lot come through recently with Nelson and Nketiah and Smith Rowe and of course Bukayo Saka. So, it's quite incredible how many youth players Arsenal are able to bring through into their team. I think that it's just a good example, I think, Miguel Aziz, of that being a situation whereby, again, we've hyped somebody up quite highly and he's become very well known and he was doing okay in friendlies, but he's not been able to fulfill his chances when they've been given to him when he's gone out on loan, sadly. Derek says, if Bruno Guimaraes gets booked, is he out for Saturday? He's on 4 yellows. No, he wouldn't be. If he got a red card in tonight's game, he would be. But yellows only count for Premier League games. So if he got a yellow tonight, it wouldn't count, and he would still be available to play against us on Saturday. So he'd need to get sent off for this game to be unavailable for the game against us on Saturday. Alfie says, Tom, are there any exciting youth prospects that we could see make a first-team appearance this season? Of course, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Ethan Nwaneri continue to be talked about as the highest-rated. Mario Dubry, of course, as well. There are a number of them that look quite good. We've obviously brought a number of those youth players to some of those games before. Charlie Sweet, for instance, came along to the Brentford game as well. So Sago Jr., of course, made his debut in that game as well, and has continued to look quite good. So there are obviously names that are out there. I'm just trying to jog my memory as well, because there's a couple of others that are making kind of some waves recently as well in the youth sides. But let me try and find who's the lineup for the last under-21 game, and then it'll jog my memory. Bradley Ibrahim's a good player as well. Of course, Kion Edwards is a striker. I'm not sure that he's going to get an opportunity. I'm not sure if necessarily he's going to make it. We've already talked about Walters. Carl Hine actually played in their last PL2 game to get him some minutes as well. Obi Martin's a name to keep an eye on. He is certainly a name that you should be familiar with. So keep an eye on Obi. He's a very exciting young player that you should be certainly aware of as well. We got some super chats to talk about. Schlamed says, for the first time ever, you're live when I'm home instead of working at 1 a.m. in California. For me, thank you for my to my Arsenal dad. Well, thank you for the very kind donation and kind words, but I'm no dad yet. Not yet. One day, maybe. Junior Gunner says, respect. But so far, Kai has been a terrible signing, says Junior Gunner. Thanks for the kind donation, but I think there's a lot more to come from Kai Havertz, and hopefully you can prove that. Cruciatus has been a member now, has become a brand new member. Thank you for the kind support, mate. Really appreciate that, and welcome to the TGT family. And Schlamed, thank you so much for being a member for 1 month as well. So thank you. Always great to celebrate the TGT community. Zudo says, Tom, would you go for Matoma as a backup for Saka? Well, Matoma's more of a left-sided player, and I'm not sure that he would want to be a backup. I think if he was to move to any team, he'd want assurances there with the amount of games that he's going to play. And that's why I think that he has ultimately signed that new deal with Brighton, because he knows he's playing regularly, he's getting plenty of game time, he's going to play for his country. And if he moves, it's going to be for a hell of a lot of money. So, yeah, I don't think that Matoma is the right choice for a Saka competitor, to be honest. Sam says, do you think that Hein will go to second choice if Ramsdale leaves? No, I don't think so. I think they would look to bring in a goalkeeper if Ramsdale leaves. But that's not decided yet. We're not at that stage yet. We might reach that stage in the future, but not at the moment. That is not where we're at right now. Rob Bob says Declan Rice to wear the captain's armband. I do expect Rice to probably start tonight's game. Arteta was very open about the fact that he's likely to feature tonight. Whether it's off the bench or not, we'll have to wait and see. But I think that Arteta might go a bit stronger than people are considering. But I also think he will make a few changes. But I think he may use some key players that people aren't maybe expecting to use. Maybe we'll see Martinelli. Maybe we will see Rice. Maybe Saliba starts this game. And, you know, so I think there's a chance. Maybe even Odegaard starts this game after being rested at the weekend. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But Saka even, you know, Saka always wants to play. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think Declan Rice will be wearing the captain's armband tonight. But I am interested to see what it's like seeing Rice play for Arsenal at the London Stadium. That's going to be very interesting indeed. Ant says, what did you make of Arteta's comments on Partey being injured yet again? Pretty, you know, self-explanatory. I think that, you know, he's a player that continues to have these problems, and I think that it hinted towards decisions needing to be made in the future as well. Phil says, who is better, Karl Hein or Alex Runarsson? Well, you'd argue that Alex Runarsson is probably a better goalkeeper because he's more senior than Karl Hein. He's currently on loan in Cardiff, I think, this season. And I don't really know how he's got on. I haven't really been able to catch up on what Runarsson's been doing, if he's playing or not. But I know that Runarsson's got this reputation at Arsenal for being a pretty dodgy goalkeeper, and he has made mistakes at Arsenal, but he is more senior than Karl Hein. He is playing regularly at a senior level. So, you know, you even with the reputation, you have to lean into Runarsson to answer that question. And Alfie says, Tom, do you think there were any mentions of potential future captaincy in the negotiations with Declan Rice joining Arsenal? I don't think so. I don't think that necessarily would have been part of it. I might be wrong, but I think, you know, it was always going to be about his role in the Arsenal team, what his expectations are, what Arteta planned to do with him, how he was going to make him a better player. I don't think captaincy was really being discussed because Arsenal already have a very young captain in Odegaard. We're already seeing another young player in Bukayo Saka seemingly get the armband after him as well. So yeah, I don't think that captaincy was really featuring too heavily in conversations, and I think that's been evidenced by the fact that Saka got the armband before, say, Rice did for the first time. Ollie says, hey, Tom, I know that you wouldn't like this, but I think Mikel dropped Odegaard due to perform and just protecting him at the presses. I see him starting tonight. No, I can tell you for a fact that that's not the case. Odegaard is injured. I spoke to Bukayo Saka after the game against Sheffield United, and Saka turned around and was very open and honest that Odegaard had spoken to him personally and said that he's been suffering with some pain in his hip. So, and that's been confirmed by other sources as well. He does have an injury. It's nothing to do with dropped because of form. It is resting with an existing injury that has been there for a number of weeks now, and that is the facts. So we can stop the conspiracies. There is an injury for Odegaard. So there you go. I'm going to scroll up in the chat box a bit because I feel like I might have missed some questions earlier on in the show. Let's go up to see how high we can go up in the chat box. Arsenal for Life says, I'm glad to hear that Charlie Patino could come back to Arsenal, which I agree with. I think that he could. Kirill says that I finished your call-in show, Tom, the other day. I absolutely loved it. Rate a 10 out of 10. We'll be doing plenty more phone-in shows in the coming weeks, so don't you worry about that. Let's go up a little bit more. Nice. I made the roll call, says old Dave. Thought I'd overslept. It's every day at 8 a.m. People know the time. Set your alarms, people. Come on. Easy. And Olawale says, Tom, I loved your content yesterday on the 12th Man podcast. It's always a pleasure to join on with Dan. It was kind of very different. I'm not used to being in those situations where there's kind of a lot of debates going on and different views flying around. But I think we handled ourselves pretty good. I think the TGT family represented themselves well in the chat box as well. And it was a good discussion. You know, I always encourage people with different views, a little bit like Northside, to come on to the phone-in shows. We sadly don't get enough people who disagree with me jumping on to those shows. And it's a nice kind of challenge sometimes talking about topics that are more challenging to talk about. So if you haven't checked out yesterday's show on Dan Potts' 12th Man podcast, I recommend you do it. It was an engaging listen. Is probably the best way of describing it. Derek says, Tom, I believe Smith Rowe will be moved on. It really doesn't bring anything to the team, and I like him, but there is an opportunity to add some more impactful players. I think that we are probably moving closer to the idea that Smith Rowe will be bought out by somebody else, a Villa, a West Ham, and some of these teams I think are more likely to go for Smith Rowe so he can get more minutes, and he may choose to do that. But it's going to be emotional for him and for the fans I just don't think necessarily the pathway is as clear as it was. I'm not sure that his profile fits what Arteta wants either, which is a shame. But he's a very talented player and he will succeed, I'm sure, somewhere else where he gets a lot more emphasis on playing time. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. It really means the absolute world that you've done so. So please do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new and to turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. Please do, of course, go and check out the Arsenal Way as well. We'll be bringing you plenty of content in the fallout to the game against West Ham tonight. We'll, of course, be doing the live blog over on football.london, so you can watch and follow the live blog over there as well. Thank you, everybody. It's great to see you. Stay safe, stay well, stay positive, and enjoy the rest of your day and the game tonight as well. And as always, up the Arsenal.